Welcome to the Take North podcast on your free Odyssey app. I'm David Haugh from 670 The Score, the Mully and Haugh Show. Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune out at Halas Hall. Holiday week, kind of a different week at Bears for the Bears at Halas Hall. Dan, 3 games left. Motivation could be lacking. You could be looking for signs. What has it been like the week after one of the most difficult losses of the year?
Yeah, I've been encouraged that the human nature emotion dip hasn't been pronounced or even evident at all here through the first 2 days of practice, Wednesday and Thursday at Halas Hall. It feels like a team that still has its focus set and is ready to go in and play what should be an inferior opponent on Sunday at home in the Arizona Cardinals, and ready to get back in the winning column and on the winning track, because I think they understand that there are some signs of progress that can be built on. But yes, there is still the acknowledgement that Sunday's loss was absolutely galling to absorb, given what it meant for the season.
Let's get into what Sunday means for the rest of this season in our opening drive.
It's time for the opening drive.
All right, Dan, so we heard from Luke Getsy on Thursday. That's always entertaining, interesting, and overanalyzed. So where do you want to start in terms of where this is, in terms of the broken offense, in terms of there are all kinds of big picture implications we talked about earlier this week. Those conversations continue. But Getsy spoke specifically on some of the things that went wrong on Sunday, which led us to this point.
Right, and so did special teams coach Richard Hightower. And so, David, it was an interesting day on Thursday at Halas Hall where we were still kind of unpacking some of the details that created a loss in Cleveland on Sunday. And look, like we spent a lot of time talking about the 3rd and 15 pass play that Joe Flacco hit for 34 yards against a blitz that gave the Browns their game-winning drive and their game-winning field goal. We spent a lot of time talking about the dropped Robert Tonyan catch that could have been a huge play for the Bears early that resulted in incompletion. We spent a lot of time earlier in the week talking about Darnell Mooney not able to secure the Hail Mary, but there were some nuances on Thursday that we were getting into that, to me, set us up to have a little discussion here thematically about losing football, about why a team is 5-9, about moments that need to be met that aren't met. And as silly as it may sound to you, I'm going to start with the coin flip, because what was notable to me, David, in kind of having these conversations of trying to figure out, are you sharp enough? Are you prepared enough to seize opportunity? We spent a lot of time with Richard Hightower talking about the end of half decision to bypass the 55-yard field goal attempt and throw a Hail Mary at the end of the half. And that explanation was clear cut and forward. They were well outside their kick line. They were well outside what they refer to as the monster kick line, which is if it's the end of the half or the end of the game, we're comfortable stretching this line to X yard line in order to just take one, 10% crack at making a kick. But in that discussion, there was a ton of conversation about the wind and the wind and the wind and the wind. And the wind on that side of the field was particularly gusty and particularly obstructive, I guess is the word for it. And so the follow-up question was, why was that the way you were going at the end of the first half when the Cleveland Browns won the coin toss and elected to receive the ball? And then you put yourself in a position where in the second quarter, when you're going to be going potentially for the last drive of the half, you're going toward the goal line that has the most difficulty kicking in. And so eventually I got around to talking to Richard Hightower about that decision-making process. Here's some of that back and forth.
Do you have input into choosing direction in terms of the coin flip happens? You guys are figuring out which way to go to start the game, which way to go to finish the game. Are you involved in that?
Yes.
So when it's sort of sailing further the other way on Sunday, and you guys go in the harder direction in the second and fourth quarter, what factors are there?
Yeah. So what factors? Great question, D. The factors there are you have to look at what they've done traditionally. They've never taken the ball, right? Wind was such a factor in that game that they decided to take the ball. So we thought about it in terms of getting our offense going, getting everything going, and having the wind at our back and playing field position in the first quarter, because we wanted to start hot. We wanted to start fast. You just don't know what you mean. You don't know in the second half what's going to happen. Our mindset was offense, defense, field position, first half with the wind. Let's go. Since they took the ball. And then in the second half, we don't have the decision. Yes. They do on the win.
Terrific question, D.
So I'm curious, David, what you make of that, just given the fact that it felt like the Bears were prepared to be getting the ball regardless of who won the toss. And then Cleveland won the toss and chose to take the ball, which is something they haven't done all year. And, Hightower's explanation there is the Bears wanted the wind at their back in the first quarter so they could get off to a fast start.
Do you think that was a mistake then? That was a misread and they weren't prepared for the Browns to take the ball?
Potentially, right? Like potentially, but they did say they wanted to have the ball or the wind at their back in the first quarter to get off to a fast start. Well, their first 3 drives in the first quarter were 3 and out, and 6 and punt. And so even with the win, they had nothing going. But it's just one of those little details. We always reflect back on the hash mark decision that Matt Nagy didn't make against the Chargers in that fateful game in 2019, and you just remind yourself that every little calculation, every little decision within a game matters. And I'm curious about that because obviously it led to that end of the half sequence that led to you going in a direction where the wind was not favorable, and you ultimately had to pass up what people thought could have been a realistic kick if you had optimal conditions, but you didn't have optimal conditions, and you threw a Hail Mary and it was intercepted / incomplete and the half ended.
So my initial reaction to a lot of that is number one, if the Bears were caught off guard by the coin flip decision by the Browns, it's pretty much the way the season has gone. But the other thing is that I think it just, to me, reflects how small the margin for error is when you make a bad decision on the coin flip, and it actually does affect the outcome. I don't know how many teams in the National Football League are impacted by what happens at the coin flip. And we have spent a lot of time this year talking about, the Bears are 3-1 when they win the toss and they take the ball. And I just don't know if the San Francisco 49ers have these conversations.
Yeah, maybe not.
And I think it's interesting because it reflects just how little room for error there is.
Yeah.
But I think they blew it. I mean, if you don't have the wind when you think you want the wind, that's a mistake, right? And I guess who does that fall on? Does that fall on the players on the field? The coach is not preparing the players for the coin flip. Can you be unprepared for a coin flip?
I don't know. And it was to me, it was just worthy of kind of an entry point into this discussion about things, about little moments. And I've got 2 more, and we'll try to get through them quick. The other one comes in the third quarter, the second one, and it's the Bears had taken a 17-7 lead on the interception return by Tremaine Edmonds, and all of a sudden you're in position maybe they kicked the field goal on the previous drive, but you're in position to add on to that lead, and you get the ball back in the middle of the third quarter. And the first play of the drive is a screen call where Roschon Johnson is leaking out to the left side. This has been shown in certain pockets of social media. I think JT O'Sullivan had a commentary on it. If you want to find the QB School's Twitter account to watch the play, you can do it there. But this was a play that in live action, when Justin Fields threw it away, he threw the ball away on a screen pass to the left side of the field. That in live action, I turned to Brad Biggs and I went, what in the world was that? I can't wait to watch that back. And I watch it back and I go, oh, God, my goodness. And then I watch it back a third time with the all 22 and you see it and you go, oh my God, like this literally is set up to be a 58-yard touchdown. And Justin Fields opts to throw the ball away. And you're left scratching your head on what exactly happened. Well, Luke Getsy had a chance to, Adam Haugh asked him directly, what was Justin's message to you on why he did not throw that pass to a back who is sitting in a spot for a screen with 4 blockers to handle 1 defender? And the ball went to the sideline because Justin threw it away. Here was Luke's response to that play.
I think anytime, right? Whether it's a pass play, screen play, whatever it is, right? You got to trust what you see, what you feel in the moment, and he did. Something didn't feel right to him in the moment, so he made the safe decision in his mind and threw it away. And we always are going to preach taking care of the football over anything else.
So I know exactly what play you're talking about, and I think everybody can remember it. And I did watch it a second time. It's the plays like they're the plays
That's
like it. that make that, first of all, happen far too often. We see with, I don't want to say regularity, but we've seen a lot of them. It's plays like that limit you from, having 200 plus passing yard days. Plays like that prevent you from having more than 23 out of 35 200-yard passing days in your career. And it's plays like that make it hard for the Justin Fields isn't the problem crowd to continue to claim that he's not at least part of it, because there are too many layups that he misses. There are too many throws that you assume quarterbacks who are accurate passers make. And there are too many examples like the Roshan Johnson miss to point to.
I watched that so many times, and I just came to the conclusion that that's losing football. And now this isn't all pinned on Justin, but it's moments like that, to your point, plays like that, that change the entire next week. If you hit that pass, if you're able to avoid, now look, there's pressure coming, but guess what? You're expecting pressure when it's a screen call. That's the whole point of the design of the screen. So
you invite it, you want it,
you invite it, and you have to
you tease it, and then you fool it, and then
you may not get the ideal passing lane, but you got to create that, and you got to get
Right.
it out there. If you complete that pass and it goes for 50 yards, potentially a 58-yard touchdown there, you're talking about being up 20-7 or 24-7, and the game might be over at that point, the way the Bears defense played. And everything that we talked about this week might be in an entirely different frame because of one simple play. And to your point, this is obviously you could single these out in every single game, a missed opportunity, a missed moment that goes the wrong way. But this is an example of something that is recurrent, where it's just there's nothing wrong with the play other than the ability to get it to where it needs to go and then watch it unfold.
It's not natural. I mean, there's a, if you're a shooter, it's an easy, you can tell guys that are just, they pick the ball, it's so fluid, but there's nothing really fluid about that throw in that case. And it could be, you want it to be. And I say this because you don't want to pick on him, because there's a lot of heat being directed at Justin Fields, and we repeat ourselves, but from a intangible standpoint, he's the easiest guy in that locker room to support and to like and embrace. But there were two examples. This is just one of them this week where the coaches have frustration. That must be difficult to suppress if you're coaching Justin Fields. Luke Getsy did as much as he could there, I thought, to protect his quarterback and not say, you know what, he blew it. He's got to hit that pass. Matt Eberflus was talking on Wednesday about, I think, a pass that Fields missed with Darnell Mooney, and he sounded frustrated talking about it, but he didn't want to be direct. So there's some restraint being shown here, and it makes you wonder how many times that's happened over the course of the last two seasons. Before they got here, it's hard to hold that against anybody. But the progress that you need to see and maybe expect to see from somebody who is your quarterback, I don't think that they're seeing. And I think that's evident in plays like we're talking about.
The pass you're mentioning that Eberflus brought up on Wednesday was the last pass before the Hail Mary to end the first half, where Darnell Mooney is literally sitting down at the number that would have gotten the Bears into field goal range, and pressure came, and Justin put a ball in a location where he brought the safety back into play, and he led Mooney right into traffic where the safety broke it up, as opposed to completing a pass at the 30. Mooney gets right down to his butt. They call a timeout, and they've got a 48-yard field goal attempt to squeeze points out of the first half. So it's another moment where you're like, man, like you and Matt, I think his words were, you got to have that. That connection has to be made, and that, like Matt feels his job security dwindling by the day because of mistakes like that. And that's when you have to understand the stakes that are here. And it's why the great ones in the game get rewarded with $260 million contracts for making plays like that happen. I'll pivot now to the third moment from Sunday. The play call for me that I hated, like literally hated in the moment, hated again and rewatch, hated again even now. And it's the 3rd and 1 jet sweep to Tyler Scott. I am struggling to understand why the Bears can't find some bread and butter short yardage concepts that work for them. We saw the goal line situation where they had all those plays down inside the 5, and it was just a constant struggle before they finally get the magic act to get in the end zone on the Fields extended play. Then you have the Fields 4th down rollout where he gets tripped up and stopped. The Tyler Scott one was a play design that is to a rookie receiver to take a sweep around the end, and it failed. And then you punted, and it didn't seem like a great call. And so I asked Luke directly about that. What in the world were you trying to do there? Here was what Luke had to say about that play call and what happened.
I think necessarily, other than Philadelphia, right, they got the bread and butter for sure. But other than that, I think it's, taking advantage of the situation that you got, right? And, we had 2 really good opportunities this week. And, you have those two potential explosives if we're able to handle the situation just a little bit better. But that's both coaching and players. That's both of us together working on those 2 opportunities. When you have premier looks, we got to make sure that we capitalize on them, because we had them. We love the call. We love what we were going after. We just didn't whether we wasn't us preparing them well enough or whether we didn't execute it well enough, both of those things. But as far as bread and butter, I feel like, we've done a really good job of attacking, minus last week in the DJ one, right? We didn't prepare them well enough for sure on that one.
What did you love about the Tyler call?
There was literally nobody there, and you saw Braxton pancake the only guy that was there. So Tyler gets around the end, and again, that end made a nice play. But if we can coach that up just a little bit better, we talked about how we can make that better, and we will, and we have. And but then you saw Braxton go and pancake. There's literally nobody left. So you're talking about a completely different game if we can get that one done and the one before, right? I mean, Justin's on the edge, right, and get shoestring tackle away from a 20-yard gain. So and I get it. We didn't get it. So that's the talk, and it should be.
That's the talk, and it should be. I agree with him there.
Well, I think when you use the term, short yardage concepts, and I think that's what I would like to see improve whoever the coach is next year. And I think in any team, you kind of have examples that come to mind. You know what you're going to do in a situation like that. And with the Bears this year specifically, when you say short yardage concepts, I think of three things that to me have created bad trends or bad tendencies. This might not be fair, but this is what comes to mind first. I would want to eliminate going backward. If you're pitching the ball backward, anything that is on 3rd and 4th and 1, taking the ball and lateraling it behind the line of scrimmage to make it even harder and you're going deeper. I don't like that idea with a downhill football team. Secondly, I'd avoid going laterally as much as possible. This is what that was. Jet sweeps are all the rage. I don't like them on 3rd and 4th and 1. Too many bad things can happen with too many people who aren't used to doing what they're being asked to do. And the third thing is the gimmicks. I think you want to avoid gimmicks at any stretch. You don't want the tight end taking the snap. You don't want a shotgun for wildcat formation. You don't want to do the tush push if you're not equipped to do the tush push and somebody's going to jump. If you can eliminate those three things and just, put the fullback in the backfield, dot the I, hand the ball off, and get your yard downhill, okay, now we're starting somewhere. If that's the identity of your football team, lean into that and avoid those other things.
Yeah, find something to lean into. And that, I didn't love Luke's response there because obviously there's a lot of plays where you could go, oh, that's 35 yards if it runs. Well, it was a loss of 1 or a no gain, and you punted the football away. And so ifs and buts, it's just not it wasn't there. And again, these are little things that add up to big results, that add up to the change in the outcome of a game, which lead to the change in the outcome of careers in a lot of instances. And so, again, you hear me on this podcast often talk about the stakes of everything that's involved for everyone. You talk about this being a cutthroat league where you better understand how steep the climb to the top of the mountain is. And if you're not ready for it, the avalanche is going to take you back to the bottom. And that too consistently happens with this football team that works inside of this building that I'm in right now.
Anything else on the Luke Getsy appearance before we move on to our predictions in the numbers game?
No, I mean, I think he's striving to seek improvement and highlight improvements that they have made. And, there have been some, but look, we've got 3 weeks left and this offense is just still kind of not carrying its weight as much as it needs to be. We've talked before, there's an accountability pie chart with a lot of pieces in it. And there's a lot of people that own accountability for that. And certainly Luke and Justin have the biggest pieces of that pie.
When Matt Eberflus was asked on Wednesday about Luke Getsy maybe relinquishing play calling duties or his support for his offensive coordinator, and he said he loved the guy, he didn't say did that answer strike you as vague in any way? What did you think about the way he responded to that question?
No, I think it was present, and I think that's kind of a staple of Matt. I mean, he said he loves Luke. He's a great leader in that room, but he's focused on this week. And I think that was just a football coach being football-y and trying to stay present in the now without trying to talk about job securities that will come up in 3 weeks here. Again, we just keep getting closer and closer to the time when these decisions will be made, and we'll know a lot more after the calendar flips to 2024.
All right, let's move on to our numbers game and predictions. All right, Dan, ChicagoTribune.com. Every Friday, there are a bunch of numbers that mean a lot to Sunday's game. What are some of the best ones this week?
All right, I'm going to start you with my favorite one. It's 24-23, and it's a 2006 game between the Bears and the Cardinals. The Bears are who we thought they were. It was not off the hook. You remember that game well. You were there. I was watching on a TV.
If you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Studs. I love that. Iconic. I mean, might be the most iconic Bears game of the 21st century. It probably rivaled only by the NFC Championship game the same year. Am I wrong?
I would think that is the most iconic victory of that era, regular season wise. The NFC Championship victory is memorable because of the imagery it created and the kind of history it made. It was at Soldier Field, but I would agree with you. How many thousand words was your oral history when you wrote that a few?
Yeah, I think I wrote that at the
ago.
10-year anniversary in 2016. I don't know how many words it was, but it was a lot of fun to talk to players from the Bears and then some from the Cardinals to talk about all the things that went on there. You can find that at chicagotribune.com. But man, the Bears overcame 6 turnovers by their quarterback that night, David, and came back from 20 points down without scoring an offensive touchdown. I don't think you will ever see that in the NFL ever again.
There's not a Bear that wants to forget that game except for Rex Grossman.
He was one of the guys I couldn't get a hold of for that piece.
Shocking.
The most shocking was I couldn't get a hold of Matt Leinart, who played really well in that game, but never returned my calls. Okay, next number is $159,797,000. That is the guaranteed money folded into Kyler Murray's 5-year, $230.5 million extension that he signed with the Cardinals in the summer of 2022. He is one of the lucky ones that was drafted in the first round to earn a second contract from the team that drafted him. But in the 2 seasons since that extension was reached, Kyler Murray is 5-11 as a starter with the Arizona Cardinals. It is an interesting case study to look at as the Bears prepare to host Kyler Murray at Soldier Field on Sunday in terms of the things that you have to be very, very confident in before you commit yourself to a long-term future with a player.
My addendum to that number would be 4, and that's the number of hours that Kyler Murray is required to study per week as per his clause in his contract that was added and created quite the controversy last year.
All right, 2 more quick ones. 3, that's the number of seasons that Matt Eberflus and Jonathan Gannon spent together in Indianapolis working for the same staff. Matt was the defensive coordinator. Jonathan Gannon was the defensive backs coach 2018 through 2020. That familiarity is notable. Who knows how it'll play out on Sunday, but it's certainly notable.
It's notable because, look, Flus has friends around the league that respect him. There could be, this could be his future employer that he's playing against on Sunday, possibly as maybe an assistant head coach. He called him his mentor. And he also did something that surprised the heck out of me, Jonathan Gannon, when talking about Matt Eberflus. He called him Flu.
Someone else here in the building called him Coach Flu earlier.
Who knew that? I mean, is the S silent? It's like Illinois.
Who knows? But maybe some guys know him as Flu and some guys know him as Flus. So
I think Matt Eberflus is in trouble.
You know what's interesting, though, David? There's a lot of people from my younger days who call me Weed, which was my name through high school and college. And then there's people in the media room that somehow, I think Jeff Dickerson was the one who kind of added the S to that. And so a lot of people in the media room know me as Weeds. People outside are like, why are they tacking the S on?
Why are they tacking the S?
Maybe it's a similar thing.
Weedsy. I like Weedsy.
Last one here, 0. It's the number of third quarter points allowed by the Bears in their last 5 games. This was a number that Matt Eberflus highlighted himself on Monday as he's looking to highlight some things that they're doing well. The defense has been great over the last month, plus they've been particularly good in the third quarter. My research showed me that the last third quarter touchdown allowed by the Bears defense was way back in week 5 in that Thursday night game in Washington. That's a long time ago since the last time this defense was hit for an end zone celebration in the third quarter.
Wow. After listening or hearing, I did not work on Thursday morning, but I know that I never miss Biggs time on the Mully and Haugh show. I'm going to add one to the mix. That would be 6. I think Brad Biggs said that 6 undrafted players contribute to the Cardinal defense. 6. This is an invitation for Justin Fields to get well in the passing game against the second worst pass defense in the league. So when you have 6 undrafted players and the second worst pass defense in the NFL, there are no excuses for there to be an 166-yard passing outing unless they decide to run the ball 80% of the time. So that would be something that's stunning. 6 undrafted players.
Just to clear up the record there, they are the second worst rushing defense. They're actually 13th in passing defense. They're 30th in passing yards allowed per play. So they are susceptible in both sides. But I also think this is a great invitation, David, to dedicate yourself to the running game and get everyone involved. Justin, Foreman, Roshan, Khalil, everybody gets a chance. And you run all over the Cardinals until they prove that they can't stop it. Notable, last week, the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen having the season that he's having, just decided, screw it. Let's run the football until we can't run the football anymore. And they just kept running the football. I think they're still running the football on the Cowboys.
Lots of numbers flying around. This is a bad defense. It's an invitation for victory for the Bears, which brings us to our predictions. Let's bring in Studs to make those, because something tells me he's expecting a Christmas miracle at Soldier Field.
Would it be a miracle? I don't know if this one would qualify as a miracle.
It would not.
Yeah. So I'm picking the Bears this week. Cardinals are just bad, and like you guys were saying, they have a terrible defense. If the Bears offense was looking for a get right game, this is about as close as you're going to get to one. So I the Bears win. I got them going 28-19. Defense should do enough against Kyler Murray, who's I think the only player on that offense you got to have any concern about. And excuse me, the running back, the running back's good too. James Connors, yeah. So, but the offensive line is terrible. So, I think the Bears should be able to walk out of there with a win that doesn't stress me out at my family's Christmas party on Christmas Eve. And if it does, then there's plenty of booze at that party. So
David, I'm hopeful to have plenty of booze in the press box at Soldier Field on Sunday afternoon. I don't think it'll be allowed, but I'm just, if we're making Christmas wish lists, that's one for me. I've got the Bears walking out of there with a double-digit victory, 26-16. I think they're the better football team. My fear, as you guys know, earlier in the week was the trapdoor would be the emotional recovery that they had to go through after Cleveland. I think they've done a good enough job here to understand what they need to do. The health is still pretty good. We'll get into some of that here at the end. But you've got an opportunity here to impose your will on a team that's not as good as you. Go do it.
I'm very curious to watch Kyler Murray. I'm very kind of curious about Rondale Moore, played at Purdue. He's healthy, right? I think he's fine. There's some curiosity about Paris Johnson, the player that I thought a lot of people thought the Bears might take, the right tackle. But as interesting as some of the pieces are for the Arizona Cardinals, I think they do kind of stink. And I can't believe the Bears are favored by 4 points. That to me is miraculous, is that the Bears are actually opening a game where they are the favored team. 27-21. I think the Bears beat the Cardinals at home, because this is a game, if there's 40,000 people at Soldier Field, it will be, if there's more than that, I'll be surprised. If the Cardinals keep their focus for four quarters, I'll be surprised. It's just going to be a difficult one, probably for both teams, but I think the Bears prevail 27-21.
Look at that. Everybody gets to enjoy Christmas Eve where the Bears win.
So while we have Studs here, let's look ahead in our last segment about Justin Fields' 35 career starts that you rank, Dan, in the Chicago Tribune and Friday's edition. Friday's online edition or print or both? Is that
definitely in the online? I'm not sure where they're spreading it around for print, if it's going to be in the print on Friday or Sunday.
Well, over the weekend, you can pay attention to the Chicago Tribune print edition and the 35 starts for Justin Fields, which he is 8-27, I believe. So you ranked them.
I did 1 through 35. I thought it would be a fun exercise here for our case. We did this when Mitch hit his 50th start here, and then we updated it when he got through 51 and 52 before he walked out the door. And I thought that was at the time a good way to just kind of get a true big picture lens on this. Is every game that this quarterback has started, and here's what it looks like top to bottom. You obviously know there's some moments at the top that will bring back adrenaline rush memories for you. There's some moments at the bottom where you go, I had wiped that completely from my memory and I never wanted to think about that game again. So I thought it would be fun here for you guys each to pick two numbers anywhere between 1 and 35. And obviously we want to spread them out a little bit just to give a full cross section. And I'll read you the game, and I'll read you the capsule that's on our rankings.
You go first, Studs.
All right, let's go with. All right, I'll just let's go with 24.
24. Okay, so that'd be in your bottom 12. The 24th best start of Justin Fields'
Oh, I
career.
thought we were picking the start number.
No,
Okay.
no. Yeah,
Okay.
you want to change your number? I'm happy to go.
No,
either
no.
way.
Wait, I'll start with a bad one, and then I'll go a good one later. So yeah,
All right.
we'll go with 24.
So 24. Rewind your time machine to October 2nd, 2022. The Bears are in New York playing the Giants. They lose that football game 20-12. Justin was 11 for 22, 174 passing yards, 52 rushing yards, lost a fumble. His passer rating was 76.7. My capsule for that game was the league's least productive passing attack, with Fields at the steering wheel continued riding the struggle bus in New Jersey. 12 possessions, only 4 field goals. A 56-yard completion to Darnell Mooney was made for the highlight reel, but Fields was sacked 6 times, didn't pull the trigger on an open deep shot to Mooney, and went without a touchdown pass for the 3rd consecutive game. Through his first 35 starts, this was one of 14 Bears losses in which the offense didn't score more than 17 points.
Okay, that's an interesting one. That seems like a meh start to me, right? That's a meh.
Oh, that's
definite
a meh for sure.
whole lot of meh in those 35. How about 33?
Oh,
What's the
boy.
33? Go deep before we go positive. Let's go in the depths.
David wants to go to
the Texans game.
David wants to go to the yuck, and well, this one we don't have to go that far back. Week 3 of this season, Chiefs 41, Bears 10.
Oh God,
11 for 22, 99 yards, a touchdown pass late, 1 interception, 47 rushing yards, 58.7 rating. Fields caused a stir leading up to this game when he suggested his early season struggles were a result of being coached in ways that were causing him to think too much. My goal this week, he said, is to say F it and go out there and play football how I know how to play football. The quarterback's quest/request to play free didn't result in immediate production, with the Bears getting blown out of Arrowhead Stadium by Patrick Mahomes and the reigning Super Bowl champs. When Mahomes left the game for good in the middle of the 3rd quarter, the Bears trailed by 41 points and had 87 total yards and 4 first downs.
Yeah, forgettable. That's a yuck. All
right, let's make something a little cheerier.
All right, go ahead, studs.
All right, let's go. Let's just go with number 1.
Okay, number 1 also this year. A couple weeks after that, October 5th, 2023, Bears 40, Commanders 20. Justin was 15 for 29, 282 yards, 4 touchdown passes, 57 rushing yards, a 125.3 passer rating, and a 20-point win. On the primetime stage, Field was dialed in from the first possession, converting his first 3rd down of the night with a beautiful 58-yard completion to DJ Moore and finishing that drive with a 20-yard scoring dart to Moore on 3rd and 14. The Bears' first victory in 347 days also provided the first huge payoff of the Fields-Moore connection, with the duo hooking up 8 times for 230 yards and 3 scores. The Bears never trailed, led 27-3 at halftime, and flew home from Washington feeling optimistic about what looked like a promising breakthrough from their young quarterback.
Oh, those were the days, right? All right, how about 10? How about the 10th best?
The 10th best. We're rounding out the top 10. December 18th, 2022, a little bit more than a year ago. Eagles 25, Bears 20. Justin, 14 for 21, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns, 61 rushing yards, a 119.5 rating. Fields' biggest thrill ride of the afternoon was an adrenalizing 39-yard scramble, during which he magically evaded a Hassan Reddick sack in the pocket, then rocketed into the open field and made the entire Eagles defense look silly. It would have been a 48-yard touchdown run, too, had he not barely grazed the sideline as he tried to cut and spin into the end zone. Fields also threw touchdown passes to running back David Montgomery and Byron Pringle, the latter coming on an extended play where Fields baited the defense with a threat of a run, then threw to a wide-open target down the right sideline. His rating was nearly 43 points higher than the average rating quarterbacks who had faced the eventual NFC Championship Eagles had up to that point. That offered an encouraging sign that the Bears quarterback was growing in his ability to handle pressure and stay composed against an elite defense.
Wow, that's a good synopsis. Boy, this isn't. I can't wait to read all this. That's pretty complete, Dan. That's a lot of work.
A lot of work. The good news is that for Justin's first 2 seasons, we were doing comprehensive quarterback rewinds on the Tuesday of every week. So the research was pretty easy because it was already done in my folders this year, a little bit fresher in the mind, and so I didn't have to realize.
What are the chances that your 20 through 35 are maybe some Field supporters 7 through 20?
Well, it's going to be, I mean, look, like this will cause discussion as most ranking systems do. I don't know that anyone will get, there's a segment of the Fields crew, David, that won't allow themselves to go below 15. So everything will be tied for 15th, I think, at that point.
That's just Dan Wiederer being Dan Wiederer. Weed, whatever you call him.
I kid because I care, folks. I kid.
Yes, you kid because he cares. A lot of people care.
Did you have a system for deciding what goes, like how to rank them, or was it just your gut feeling?
No, so thanks for asking that. So we put together the entire spreadsheet of the starts. And Brad Biggs, Colleen Kane, and I went through collectively, and we had 4 categories in the spreadsheet just to get us started. It was wow, good, meh, and yuck. So there were 4 categories that those games would fall into. The wow category ended at number 5. It went about 8 or 9 more before we were out of the good territory, and then into meh, and then the bottom, you heard the 33rd start in Kansas City. That was definite yuck territory. Everything in the 30s, I think, and possibly up through like 28 was in Yucksville.
A lot of Yucksville, a lot of Shrugsville, a lot of not enough Wowsville.
Right.
This is such a place. All right, good stuff. ChicagoTribune.com. Let's wrap things up with our 2-minute drill.
The 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill.
All right, so Jaylen Johnson spoke this week. I thought he was very interesting in that the door seems open a little wider to him re-signing with the Bears. He understands how good this defense could be, wants to be a part of it. John Hoke spoke on Thursday on behalf of Jaylen Johnson. Dan, you take it from there.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good to hear from Jaylen's own mouth that he's not hell-bent on getting to free agency and testing the open market, chasing a number. If the Bears come to him well before that and give him something that he deems suitable, he'll sign on the dotted line right away. Now, where that number is, we don't know. We can only guess for the time being. Obviously, the Bears have to work their way through that negotiation-wise. But John Hoke, his position coach, inferred, he didn't say this out loud, but that Jaylen Johnson was the best defensive back coach or defensive back he had coached since David Haugh way back.
No, he didn't say that.
But he did say he was thrilled for the kind of season that Jaylen is having. And then when he was asked about kind of the makeup that he's seen in Jaylen Johnson this season, here's what he had to say about Jaylen.
Really smart. And smart people figure things out. And he's going into his 4th year, right? And so he's learned and understands the game very, very well of football. And you probably don't watch because I've done this for so long. It's some of the plays that you don't see that aren't a splash play that jump out to me. He knows the route combinations. He understands what the quarterback can and can't do. Even in the Cleveland game, he really didn't get a lot of targets, right? And the way we play our guys is the way we play them. Well, the ball ended up on the middle of the field, so he ended up to the single side. Well, it was a play he almost intercepted. They probably weren't expecting him to be to that side, but that was the design of the play, so it went there. So just that he knows what the mentality of watching what the coordinator calls the route combinations. He watches massive amounts of tape, and he does a really good job. So at the end of the day, obviously he's gifted athletically, but he's really smart.
Cool praise there.
It is because, John Hoke's been here for 1 year coaching Jaylen Johnson, and I think he respects the way that he approaches the game. And when you combine that kind of football IQ with the natural instincts and the ability that Jaylen Johnson has, you got a Pro Bowl cornerback right there.
Yeah, and Jaylen certainly wants to make that case, and then we'll see where this all heads.
Cool. Injury updates: Tevin Jenkins, Demarcus Walker, Darnell Mooney. What's the latest?
Darnell Mooney, Demarcus Walker, back at practice as full participants. Good news there. Darnell had missed Wednesday with an illness. Demarcus is working through a leg issue, but seems to be okay. Tevin Jenkins still in concussion protocol. Again, we've talked about the hopes that he's able to get himself back on the field, if not this week, then before the season ends. That's one to keep an eye on in the coming weeks.
And Dan, as the conversation continues surrounding Justin Fields and what's ahead in the Bears' decision-making process, and will they upgrade to Caleb Williams and/or Drake May? The semantics, the details about the 5th-year option and what that represents, and the contract realities because of the CBA. What did you think is important? What do you think is important to remember when we talk about this in regard to Justin Fields?
Yeah, so I put out a tweet on Thursday morning. It's a good way to kind of encapsulate all this. It was some research we were doing as a Chicago Tribune team as we get our arms around all the things that are ahead with the quarterback decision. But I think it's important for people to understand that this is the first formal opportunity for a regime to offer a vote of confidence or a vote of no confidence in a first-round pick. That 5th-year option comes up after your 3rd season, and the people in charge have to decide now it's fully guaranteed for your 5th year. And so particularly at the quarterback position, David, if you have hesitation and you are leaning against picking up the 5th-year option, it's almost a compass towards which direction you need to go. in the Bears case, when you're sitting on a potential number 1 overall pick, a potential number 2 overall pick, wherever it may be, it heightens the magnitude of that decision. Because if you are going to say, okay, we like Justin, but not well enough to exercise the 5th-year option here in May, you've got the resources right now to pivot in a new direction. And so the idea that you just kind of let it play out, and if it doesn't, let's give him a third, see if he's good year in 2024. And then if it doesn't work, well, then we address the quarterback position. Well, guess what? You're not going to have likely the same draft capital to play around with at that point. And then you'll have cost yourself a golden opportunity. What I did in that tweet that I mentioned is kind of go through all of the 32 quarterbacks that have been drafted between 2011 and 2020, every class before the one that Justin came in at, and just kind of categorized them on ones that had their 5th-year exercised and then eventually came to an extension with their team, ones that had their 5th-year option exercise and then had their contract expire after that 5th year, ones that never made it to their 5th year, ones that, there's the 2 cases that probably directly apply to the field situation at this point are Daniel Jones, who did not have the 5th-year option exercise, and the Giants gave him that prove it to us year under Brian Daboll when Brian Daboll came in, and Daniel Jones played well enough to earn the extension. And now I think people in New York would go, what did we do by signing him to that extension? 4 years, $160 million. And the other one is Tua, who had the 5th-year option exercise, but has not come to an extension in Miami yet. That to me was more so a case of them trying to work through the concussion issues that were evident for that period of time, and they wanted to see how things would go. Clearly is playing well in 2023 and at a level that leads you to believe that they will find an extension there. And so those are kind of the 2 examples of guys that didn't, nowadays it was like the Wentz and Goff class, David, changed it to the point where teams that exercise that 5th-year option after year 3 are almost immediately starting negotiations on the extension. And
Right.
if you're not, you're kind of pointing in a new direction. And so that's just some context as we get closer and closer to some of those decisions.
Something we'll be sure to revisit next week. That's good research. Look forward to seeing that in the paper and on the website as well, because that's not a conversation that's ending anytime soon. Okay, so just a few semantics. We will not be doing a post-game pod on Christmas Eve. We'll drop next week, probably Tuesday. We'll do a pod on Tuesday, day after.
I thought we were doing Christmas morning. No,
let's
cancel that one.
Let's not. You know what? If they were 9-5 instead of 5-9, there's a possibility
Okay.
all things would be in play. But I think we're going to make a command decision there, and we'll be back next week. And we appreciate all of the people listening through a very difficult year. It's been interesting, and we'll be back next week after the Cardinals game to talk about all the implications that we see on Sunday. So for Adam Studzinski and Dan Wiederer, I'm David Haugh. Thank you for listening to the Take the North podcast.
Happy holidays, everyone. Great talk. See you out there.